Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jessica Smith and I help you simplify home education so you can work wonders in your home. Today I am going to talk all about creating a custom curriculum for your family. Now before you turn this video off and say, no way, I'm not interested, hear me out. I want to talk about why I do it and how easy it can be. It really doesn't need to be as overwhelming and time consuming as you may think it is. So hear me out. Why would I create a custom curriculum? Well, what I've noticed is that when I create a curriculum that is geared toward my children's interests, for example, history. My boys aren't as interested in the stock market crash of the 1920s and 30s and the Depression. They're going to be more interested in the Wright brothers and Henry Ford and all of those inventions. So I'm going to focus more on learning about inventors and those men and women during that time period and those events, things that my children are interested in that's going to make history come alive for them. I've also noticed that they're going to want to dive deeper into some subjects and some topics, and we're going to spend a few weeks on those, or they're going to just not be as interested. So we're going to hit those topics a little bit and we're going to move on. So it's really nice to be able to move at their own pace, which is the reason why I homeschool, and I'm guessing it's a big reason why many of you homeschool as well. Now, there was an experiment done at Williams College by Susan Engel that really illustrates why it's important to either make your own curriculum or have a more loosely based or less rigid curriculum, less structured curriculum. Now, in this experiment, there were two groups of teachers. There was one group that was not given any specific guidelines on how to teach a science class, and then there was another one that was subtly encouraged to follow or to complete a worksheet. Now, the first group of teachers tended to respond to the students' questions with interest and encouragement, and also when they expressed ideas too. Then the second group of teachers said things in response to questions and ideas. They said things like, wait a minute, that's not on the instructions, that's not part of the lesson plan. So Engel concluded that, quote, teachers are very susceptible to external influences. Their understanding of the goal of teaching directly affects how they respond when children spontaneously investigate. And I have felt that with my own teaching. When I have a very structured and rigid curriculum with objectives, with learning objectives, with script for me to read, with activities, I feel very committed to doing whatever this curriculum says. And when I have something that's more loosely based, like just read these chapters and then have the child write down questions they have, tell the child what they've learned, I've noticed that my children enjoy learning. I'm a lot less stressed. I am more of a teacher than I am just a slave to the curriculum. So that is why I like to make my own curriculum based on teaching methods that I know are going to be the most effective, and be able to choose books that I know are going to interest my kids, or even help my children find books that they're interested in. A custom-made curriculum or personalized curriculum, I can choose books and topics that I know my kids are interested in. I can focus on the questions that they are asking and help them find answers. Charlotte Mason said that the mind only learns when it is answering its own questions. In other words, the mind has no interest in learning the answers to questions that it never asked. And the other reason I like to make a curriculum is that I can go at my child's pace, that we can keep studying a topic and dive deeper if they want to read more books about it, or we can move on if they've learned what they feel comfortable with, or we've answered all their questions. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the basics of how to create your own curriculum. Now, you may only want to maybe try history, or maybe geography, maybe nature study, or literature. I would say literature is going to be the easiest one to start with because you are simply reading books. I usually choose literature that is it's in line or it complements the same historical time period that we're studying. And so, for example, when we were doing 1800 to 1900, the 19th century, my oldest son read Tom Sawyer. My younger boys, we read American Tall Tales by Mary Pope Osborne. So we read those, and they're super easy. You read a chapter or two during that lesson time, and then you ask your child to tell you about it. And then the next one I would say is to start with history after you've tried literature. History is fairly simple too. You have a spine, you have a biography, and a historical fiction, and you can even do this family style if your kids are around the same age, and you read a book, have them narrate afterwards, and you might ask them what they wondered about and look up some pictures or some videos of whatever they were wondering about, or look up some more books. If you read about someone in your spine and they want to learn more about that person, help them pick a biography to be reading on their own. And then historical fiction, I really like to read that as a family. And then you just have them narrate afterwards. If you really want to read the book, which I recommend doing beforehand, you can have some narration prompts written down or some writing prompts written down beforehand before you start the school year. So that is how I create a custom curriculum for my family. I'm going to show you the process. I've made a sheet to help me plan out my topics or subjects before the year starts, and I try to do that before each term. I don't do the whole year, I just do by term, because I may not finish as much as I thought during the term, and so we may have to continue on to the next term. And so I just like to do one term at a time for that reason. I'll show you what that looks like with the sheets that I have created. So I choose which books that we're going to use, and I have all of the ones I like to use. I have videos and blog posts of our favorite books, and I also have all of them on the curriculum guides that I offer on my website. So I'll choose either some picture books for my younger kids, or I will choose a spine, a chapter book. And so I'll just write down which pages we'll be reading. Now, how do I decide which pages we'll read? Well, I try to read the books beforehand, and I kind of just time how long it takes me. And for my Form 2 kids who are fourth to sixth grade, you want to spend about 15 minutes reading and then about 5 minutes narrating and discussing. So that's about, for me, for good reading, that's about 10 to 15 pages. And also if we do about 15 pages, we can be done with this book in a little over a term. So I'll just read that and I'll write it down. So pages 1 through 10, and I'll just write down the book. And if you are listening to this on the podcast, I'm just writing this down, and you can see what that looks like on YouTube if you're interested. And if you want all of these downloadable sheets, that is available on my membership, which the links will be in the description box if you're interested in getting all of those. So I'm just going to write down, excuse my terrible handwriting, as I'm trying to write it so you can see it. All right, so I have that, and I like to read the books, but I like to have these little sticky notes in the book, and I mark where I read last, and I will write down questions or narration prompts, ideas for the pages that I'm reading, and I just have these in the book because sometimes I'll read this while we're at the park or in the car, and so I like to have sticky notes there, and I have the sticky notes at the beginning of wherever they're reading. So pages 23 to 31, this one was on page 23. And as I'm reading, like I said, I'll write down some narration prompts or some additional resources like primary sources that would be good, photos, videos, whatever. I'll write these on the sticky notes and put them in my book. Then when I have time to sit down and really plan these out, I just take the sticky notes out and I will just write these. So let's see, video of cotton gin. Okay, and then here's a narration. So tell me about the economies. And if I'm doing it on the computer, I'll just type these out on that document. Okay. So notebooks. Just depending on what notebooks your child will be using for whatever age they're in. So if this was for Form 2, then I would put record in century chart under notebooks, or book of centuries, or century chart. And if you're interested in what those mean, I have a video about how I teach history based on Charlotte Mason's methods. Or book of centuries. Now, I like to leave it very open-ended, but you could put something like, in parentheses, cotton gin. So it gives your child some idea. If they're like, I have no idea what to do. Oh, well, let's look up a picture or video of the cotton gin, and then you can use that to record in your book of centuries, or they can pick something else. And then questions. This is a place where you can record some questions that you want to use for exams. But I like to use questions, or use this section for the child to write down questions they had. So when we're narrating, I would ask them, what do you wonder? What did you wonder when you're reading this? What questions did you have? And they can record, or you can record those down here. I think it's really important for kids to write down their questions. And as they get older, you can teach them how to evaluate and read a book. And so I give my son sticky notes, and he uses those to write down questions when he's reading. And what is really helpful when you give them this book for older kids that are reading on their own, you can stick a sticky note at the beginning where they would be reading. So page 23, I just stick a sticky note there, so it's already ready for him, and he can write down questions as he reads. And then also ask them to record or to underline, get this out again, to underline any quotes that they really like and they want to use for copy work or dictation. So having them write down questions they have while reading, what they would ask the author, and then having them underline quotes or things that they want to save or record in their notebook. So you could also put that in there. What phrases, what sentences did you underline? What did you mark? And then they can record that in their notebook. So reading, record what reading they would be doing. Then the question part would be for them to record questions. So that would be blank. And then in the notebooks, record some ideas of what to record in their notebooks. And then narration. Write down any narration prompts or even writing prompts. I like to use, this is my cheat sheet for Writing Revolution. I don't use everything from that book, but they do have some good ideas. So I will record some ideas for because, but, so sentences. For example, Abraham Lincoln won the election. So I would put that either in narration, or you could put in questions. I like to do this very first before we begin a reading. So I would say Abraham won the election because, or but, or so, and they would tell me about that before we started the reading. So it just needs to be something that they read about in the past. Alternatively, you could ask them to tell me what you learned about Abraham. Tell me what you learned about in our last reading, or remind me what happened in our last reading before you begin reading. And so that's an important thing. You can just ask them to remind you of what you read about last time, or you can give them one of these sentences about what you read in the last chapter. So those are just some Writing Revolution ideas of how to incorporate that into your custom curriculum. All right. And then any additional materials. Again, that could be primary sources like videos, photos. It could be documents. It could be speeches. I have some books, or I have a couple sources that I will include depending on the topic. So for history, there's the National Archives. There's also History by Mail. And so if I have anything like that, these are not Civil War related, but I have some primary source documents that I can put in here. So that would just remind me to look at that or have my child look at that. Now, this is for 1 week. I just plan 1 week at a time. So there's the readings we want to do that week. Are the notebook recordings we want to do that week, narrations, and then additional materials that we want to look at, all in a week. And so that I do 12 of those per term. And so that is all I need to do for history, is fill out 12 of these sheets and have them ready for when we start. So if you have any questions about this or need clarification, I'm sure that I forgot something, but if you need any clarification and you're watching the YouTube video, just leave me a comment and I will respond to you. And if you have any ideas of things maybe I forgot or how you do it differently that works really well for you, please do that. Leave a comment below for other mamas. And if you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified when any more of these videos come out. All right, and if you're wondering what this looks like in my document, I'm just going to show you here. This is in Canva. You could also do this easily in Google Docs. So I have here week 1, week 2. I have some of the Writing Revolution sentences from the past reading to help, kind of like a delayed narration. I don't have them write these, I'll just have them say them. So finish this with a because, but, or so, and then finish this sentence, although the Underground Railroad was dangerous. And this one I'm actually going to move that to the bottom as an extra activity, writing activity to do. So I have these kind of delayed narration prompts here. I have what they should be reading right here. And I like to have some biographies listed here that the child can choose from. I think it's important for them to choose someone that they're interested in learning about. And if they can't decide who they want to read about at the beginning, then start reading the spine. And I'm sure that they'll become interested in someone as they read about that person in the context of, the whole history or of the broad picture of history. And so there's the reading for that week. And then what questions do you have? What do you wonder? Just a reminder to ask your child that. And then here's some narration prompts and then things to record about. And I like to sometimes, if there's a really, if there's an idea that I have of what they could be, what they could draw in their book of centuries, then I'll put an idea there, but they don't have to do that. And then sometimes when I'm reading, I will say, oh, you know what? I'm sure that looking at a cotton gin demonstration, I know they're going to want to do that. So I'll just sample some videos beforehand so that I know, oh, this is a good one. So we don't spend too much time of our lesson and be distracted by looking at YouTube videos. So there's that. And then if I know of some books that are interesting that I don't want to require reading, make it a required reading, but the child may want to read on their own time, then I will put that suggestion there. This is also additional materials, was where I put pictures or primary documents or speeches that they could read here as well. So that is what my document on my computer looks like, and that is here where I have these pieces of paper or these little sticky notes that I fill out while I'm reading. I just type these in right there. Now, when I'm using ChatGPT, I am doing it on my computer and I can't use my phone right now because I'm using it to record, but I will use the app, ChatGPT app, to help me brainstorm sentences for these writing activities. I can also use it to help think of narration prompts or writing prompts. And if I'm doing geography, I'll use it to help me think of map questions. And I'll go into more detail in Patreon. I'm going to make a video in detail how I plan out each subject. So history, nature study, geography, literature, and I'm going to have all of those narration or those chat GPT prompts written out so you can just copy and paste them into chat GPT when you are creating your own curriculum. And again, all of those links will be in the description below.